Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Monday evening, January 29, 2024. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video, share it, subscribe and tap notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what the weather's been like here recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let us take a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening. We can still see that the Atlantic is being dominated by that ridge of high pressure right there, situated to the north of the main development region. And it's this high pressure that's responsible for sending all of those strong easterly trade winds off of Africa across the main development region. And it has kicked up a lot of Saharan dust, a vigorous plume at that, heading into portions of the eastern Caribbean and northeastern South America. Fortunately, that Saharan dust won't be making it as far as Jamaica, but what we have that's going to be affecting Jamaica is this blue line right here. That's actually a cold front, and if we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before the sun went down, we can actually make out that brownish kind of milky color associated with the Saharan dust heading into sections of the main development region, and we can also see the clouds associated with that cold front stretching all the way from northern sections of North Atlantic all the way down into portions of the Bahamas, sections of Cuba, the Cayman Islands, sections of Central America as well. And it has also brought some amount of clouds into sections of especially northern Jamaica today. Some of these clouds building into sections of some southern parishes as the day progressed. If we take a look at this post that was made recently on our Twitter, it highlighted this cold front and the fact that it's going to be bringing in a lot of cool, windy and wet weather to parts of Jamaica. And we know how these things go. We have the usual relief rainfall that's expected across northern parishes especially. Not to mention the cooler than average temperatures as represented by the blues and the greens. And we know how it usually goes, northern parishes being affected the most. And when we're talking about northern parishes, we're talking about Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland, with all of that relief rainfall that we're going to be explaining some more later on. But we can't rule out some of these clouds spilling into sections of some southern parishes, bringing some afternoon rainfall across those spots. And we know southern parishes, we're talking about Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew and St. Thomas. If we take a look at what took place across Jamaica today, this post was made on our Twitter page at 1:26 p.m. Keep in mind that if you'd like to see more posts like this, we make posts not only on our Twitter, but our Instagram at weather.jamaica, or TikTok at Weather Jamaica, and our Facebook at Weather Jamaica 876. And you already know our YouTube at Weather Jamaica. So we can see that we had some amount of clouds coming in across sections of some northwestern parishes. So sections of Hanover, St. James, gotten on some amount of overcast skies and isolated showers at that time, spilling into sections of Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth. And then during the afternoon hours, by about 5:35 p.m., that was about an hour ago, we saw that we had some amount of clouds coming into sections of some northwestern parishes still. And we saw that we had some clouds building up that caused some amount of overcast skies and isolated showers to sections of some southern parishes. So Manchester, section of Clarendon, St. Catherine, section of maybe St. Thomas gotten on some of that. If we take a look at the latest visible satellite images of Jamaica before the sun went down, we can see that we have some amount of clouds still affecting sections of the island with some amount of isolated showers. If we take a look, we can see those clouds even better right there, especially across sections of some southern parishes: Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Thomas getting in on some of the overcast skies and isolated showers. And then if we take a look at the infrared satellite images, we can still see those clouds being represented even better with those grays. And even on the Doppler radar images, we can see those grays that represent some light to moderate rainfall across sections of Manchester and Clarendon. If we take a look at the temperatures right now, we can tell we have 26 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 27 degrees Celsius in Kingston. And by about 3 a.m. on Tuesday, temperature should dip down to about 23 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 23 degrees Celsius in Kingston. As it relates to the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we can see that this map from the GFS is showing 18th on Tuesday, which is actually 1 p.m. And we can see Jamaica embedded in some grays that we know represent some average temperatures. And we can see that the blues that represent below normal temperatures are getting ready to make their way into the Jamaica area. So we're definitely going to be in for some cooler than average temperatures this week. There's not going to be a shortage of cooler than average temperatures at all. Considering all of those greens, we can see a lot of those below average temperatures across sections of Florida, the Bahamas, sections of the Cayman Islands, Cuba, as well as sections of Mexico, Belize, Guatemala as well. And Jamaica is going to be getting our turn, especially as we head into Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. If we take a look at the average temperatures for the month of January, we usually receive around 86.5 degrees Fahrenheit. When we take a look at the thermometer, that's about the same as 30 degrees Celsius. So if we're going to be receiving some of those grays, tomorrow it's going to be anywhere from 30, maybe slightly below that, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, considering that we have some of those blues that represent below normal temperatures heading into the island. If we take a look at the dry air map, we can see that although we're going to be affected by this cold front, bringing in some amount of moisture, there's still a lot of dry air across the region, as we can see represented by those yellows, oranges and reds anywhere across the Caribbean. But what we don't want to see is all of those reds and whites within those reds that we see closer to Africa. All of that has to do with the Saharan dust, and we can see it all even better on this map. This is the forecast for 2 p.m. on Tuesday, and we can see that vigorous plume of the Saharan dust as represented by those brown colors stretching all the way from Africa, stretching all into portions of the main development region, sections of the Windward Islands. So anywhere from Martinique, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, sections of Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana are going to be getting in on those vigorous plume, those hazy skies, which may trigger some amount of asthma or sinusitis in some people. If we take a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can see that both the Euro and the GFS are showing a lot of blue surrounding the island, and we know the blues is right there represented on the key at the bottom right. That represents anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave height. And if we take a look at the wind forecast, it makes sense because we're going to be having the winds coming in from the north, averaging anywhere from 10 to 15 knots. However, we know that when we have the winds coming in from the north, we usually have what we call that relief rainfall, especially across northern parishes in Jamaica. So we can actually see what happens here on this map. Let's say that this left side of the island is the north coast, while this right side of the island is the south coast, and we have the hills or the Blue Mountains in between. So we have all of the rising air. Then we have all of that air condensing and forming clouds and bringing a lot of rainfall to sections of Portland, sections of St. Mary, St. Anne getting in on some of that rainfall. Then as usual we have the rain shadow, which lacks the rainfall or the moisture across the southern parishes in Jamaica. But we can rule out some isolated afternoon showers affecting some areas. Sometimes these clouds spill into sections of some southern parishes, especially when there's an abundance of clouds and rainfall across sections of some northern parishes. And if we actually take a look at the rainfall forecast now, we can see that both the Euro and the GFS models are showing the blues that represent rainfall across sections of northern Jamaica as early as 6 a.m. right here. So definitely section of St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland getting in on some of that. Then as we head into about 9 a.m., we have those clouds still bringing a lot of relief rainfall to sections of Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland. And then by about 2 p.m. we still have those clouds bring a lot of rainfall to sections of St. Mary and Portland. But we start to see some of those blues that represent rainfall affecting sections of Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas, and we can see that being represented on both the Euro and the GFS models. And that's about 2 p.m. by the way. If we take a look at the rainfall totals that are expected, it makes sense that most of the rainfall within the next 24 hours are going to be affecting sections of some northern parishes in Jamaica. So definitely sections of St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland getting in on the most rainfall. Definitely sections of northeastern Jamaica getting in on the most, as we can see by all of those colors. Up to 0.55 of an inch of rainfall is what the Euro is forecasting within the next 24 hours. GFS not so robust, only 0.3 of an inch of rainfall across Portland. Either way, we're in the month of January. We're wrapping up the final days. In the next 24 hours, we're going to be getting some decent rainfall, especially across northern Jamaica. And as you know, we usually receive up to 97.75 millimeters of rainfall during this month across Jamaica on average. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get this month before we head into the month of February. We know February is usually the driest month of the year across Jamaica. We only get up to 65.4 millimeters of rainfall during that month. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So we can see that we have those clouds associated with that cold front, bringing a lot of overcast skies and rainfall to sections of the Bahamas, Cuba, the Cayman Islands, and sections of Central America. But we can also see that we have some amount of clouds bringing some rainfall and overcast skies to sections of Haiti, Dominican Republic, not to mention sections of the Eastern Caribbean. Lots of clouds streaking over those areas, associated with a weather system that some say was very similar to a tropical wave. We saw a tweet from one of those NOAA weather weather profiles on Twitter, and they were comparing this system right here to something similar to a tropical wave. Although it's not that season as yet, it's quite interesting that they compared it to a tropical wave, and it still brings some amount of moisture to sections of the Windward and the Leeward Islands as we speak. And if we take a look at the Doppler radar images of those areas, we can actually see the rain bands associated with what they were referring to, or what the satellite images are referring to. So we see those greens and the yellows that represent light to moderate to even heavy rainfall, still affecting sections of Antigua and Barbuda, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica. And if we take a look at the Barbados radar, we can see some amount of rainfall affecting sections of Martinique, sections of St. Lucia, sections of St. Vincent. And if we take a look at the wider view of Doppler radar images, we don't see much happening across the ABC Islands at all. Maybe there's a glitch happening right now on the Belize radar, because there's definitely a lot of cloud cover across Belize and Honduras. So the lack of rainfall and Doppler radar images are not making sense. But we know how these things go. The Doppler radar images are usually glitching out. As it relates to the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we see below average temperatures anywhere from the eastern United States all the way down to portions of Florida, sections of the Gulf of Mexico, Central America, the Western Caribbean, sections of the Bahamas, and Turks and Caicos. While above normal temperatures, as represented by those yellows, oranges, and reds, are going to be affecting sections of the Central and Eastern Caribbean, not to mention sections of Northern South America. If we take a look at the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Tuesday, we do see that majority of the Caribbean should be in the clear, as all the browns that represent the Saharan dust should be plaguing Africa, the main development region, as well as sections of the Windward Islands and northeastern South America, especially northeastern South America. We see those darker shades of browns that indicates a vigorous plume of Saharan dust. Definitely some hazy skies, definitely some amount of asthma or sinusitis issues being triggered in some people. So definitely sections of Trinidad and Tobago, sections of Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, sections of St. Lucia, Martinique, definitely especially sections of Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana going to be getting in on the brunt of that for 2 p.m. on Tuesday. As it relates to the wave forecast for tomorrow, you see that both the Euro and the GFS are quite on the calm side. We see more so in the way of 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights all across the Caribbean, and that's because the winds are not going to be that strong for the most part. The Central and Western Caribbean coming in some kind of a northerly fashion, northeast northerly fashion, averaging anywhere from 10 to 15 knots or to 20 knots. GFS something similar, but we see more of a southeasterly flow across section of the Eastern Caribbean, averaging the same. As it relates to the rainfall forecast, if they are not already getting rainfall right now, there's definitely some amount of rainfall in the forecast within the next 24 hours, especially for sections of Honduras, sections of Guatemala, Nicaragua. You can also see some rainfall for Costa Rica, Panama, as well as section of the Eastern Caribbean associated with that system that we mentioned earlier. So definite sections of St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, Antigua and Barbuda. Not to mention sections of especially northern Hispaniola, Haiti and the Dominican Republic getting in on some of that. As well as sections of Colombia, southern Venezuela, coastal areas of Guyana, Suriname and French Guiana getting in on some of the action as well. I know that when both maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing something similar like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.